Emergency funds are funds that are set aside outside of your other savings and investments. Emergency funds are for those times in your life that are hard to predict, those anomalies that we may experience, such as loss of employment or major medical expenses that we just don't see coming. Emergency funds are not to be used on vacations, business expenses, hobbies, entertainment, or other short-term or long-term savings goals. Now, it's important that your emergency funds remain highly liquid, as in you can access them within a few business days. You do not want to put your funds, your emergency funds, into stocks, into cryptocurrencies, into a business investment, or into real estate. Those are all great things to explore from an investment perspective, but they're not highly liquid. It could take time to get those funds out, and sometimes, depending on how the market is, those funds can be undervalued and you have to wait for the value to increase to get your maximum amount out. I highly recommend you open up a high yield savings account with a 1.8 or greater percent APY. So right now, you may have some savings sitting in your checking account or in a basic savings account with your bank. That basic savings account is probably paying 0.01% in interest, which is a few pennies here and there depending on how much you have saved. A high yield savings account will take those same funds but give you 1.8 or 1.9 or sometimes greater percent back each month for just parking those funds there. I've seen a lot of suggestions on social media about how much you should save for an emergency fund, and a lot of the suggestions recommend you save about a month's worth of wages. And maybe that's a good place to start, but I highly recommend you aim for something more like 4 to 6 months worth of living expenses. Now, these are expenses such as your rent or your mortgage, your bills, your food, these essentials that you need to survive. Calculate what that amount is, multiply it by 6, and that is your new goal to save for. For some, it could be thousands of dollars. For others, it could be $20,000. It all depends on your lifestyle and your current living expenses. So let's say you got laid off from your job, or as of right now, we're in this coronavirus pandemic. A lot of people, including myself, aren't working as much. We have to stay home right now. Emergency funds are used to fill in the gap that I'm experiencing. And as those funds are used, you need to have a plan for replenishing those funds. So create a line item in your current monthly budget for replenishing funds back into your emergency fund. It could be as simple as $100 a month, $50 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever that may look like for your living situation. Create a line item in your budget that you're actively saving and replenishing back into your emergency fund. I also see a lot of people who are actively investing into dividend stocks or Bitcoin. I see people buying their first home. Those are all great things, and I highly encourage you to diversify your investments. However, a lot of these people are doing that before they have an emergency fund saved up. And I do not recommend you explore a lot of investment opportunities until you take care of your day-to-day living expenses and having that emergency fund maxed out to what you want it to be. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you buy your first home, you save up enough money for a down payment, and it's the perfect home for you and your family. You get in there, 6 months later, there's some major issues, things that you can't afford to fix. Maybe your furnace goes out. An emergency fund could be used to fix that issue. But you didn't have an emergency fund because you put it all into a down payment and then you bought your house. And now you have to put that charge on a credit card, and you're gonna have to pay that back over time, and you have to pay interest on that. That is not an ideal situation. Now, you may be in a position where you don't have a lot of income right now to work with. You're just getting by, you're living month to month, and you're asking yourself, but how am I gonna save up for an emergency fund on top of trying to do other things in my life, like start a business or improving my career through education? Well, there's ways that you can increase your income simply by reducing your spend. And that sounds kind of like a little hokey, but it works. So if you're spending, let's say you're spending $200 a month on things like entertainment, drinks, going out to bars, seeing friends, going to movies, dining out, all those little charges add up. And before you know it, you're spending hundreds of dollars a month that aren't essential. Those are just nice to haves. What I would encourage you to do is evaluate how you're spending your money. See if you could save or shave off just $100 a month, which is $1,200 a year, and start putting that money into an emergency high yield savings account. It's going to grow over time, and it may be slow at the start, but you're taking a lot of steps in the right direction. This is all smart because it's a way of investing in yourself. So you know that anomalies happen in life. You know that when they happen, if you don't have funds, you got to put it on a credit card or you got to go borrow money. This is a way to minimize the effect that these anomalies can have in our life. In the short term, it may be a little painful, but man, when you are needing those funds because you got laid off or you're sent home to self-quarantine for 1 month, 2 months, those funds are going to help fill in the gaps and allow you to survive. The financial climate is quite stressful right now. We're all experiencing a lot of emotion. We're experiencing a lot of new things for the first time. I've never been in a situation where I had to socially distance myself from my friends, peers, coworkers. This is new for me. And I'm sure it's new for a lot of you as well. I know we can't go back in time and fix things. I know we can't go back in time and save for an emergency fund that we need to be using right now. And that's okay. The important thing here is we're experiencing this shift in our society, socially, economically, and we can learn from it. We can learn how to plan ahead for the next time this anomaly happens. So think about an emergency fund. It doesn't take much to start saving for that fund. You can search online for a list of banks that have high yield savings accounts with no minimums. They don't charge any fees, that pay a high interest rate. Explore those options, find one that works for you, and start putting money into that account to save for a rainy day.